That night, I found 2 children left alone in the snow. A 7-year-old boy holding his baby sister in a thin blanket, shaking, begging me for help. But what chilled me wasn't the December wind. It was the moment I realized the baby in his arms had stopped crying. I'm Ethan Cole, a man who once believed he could control everything with money and power, until I stood in front of those 2 children and understood. Some lives don't wait for you to be ready. I didn't expect that night to turn into anything. It was just another long day that wouldn't end. My driver had called in sick, so I decided to walk home through Henderson Park. My head still stuck in a board meeting that ran 2 hours too long. Voices, numbers, people arguing over things that felt important at the time. But standing there later, none of it even crossed my mind. I'm 38. I built Coltech from nothing into something people respect. At least, that's what they say. But when you go home to a place that's too quiet every night, if you start realizing success doesn't make the silence go away. My ex-wife moved to California 3 years ago with our daughter Ava. Now I see my kid in pieces, holidays, summer breaks, short moments that never feel like enough. The park was lit up for Christmas. Lights everywhere, glowing through the snow. It should have felt warm, but it didn't. It just made everything feel emptier. Like I was walking through something that didn't belong to me anymore. Then I heard that voice. "Excuse me, sir." I turned, and there he was, small, standing next to a bench covered in snow. Jacket too thin, jeans worn out, hair wet, face red from the cold. But his eyes, those eyes were doing everything they could not to break. I looked around, no parents, no one. "Yeah?" I said, stepping closer. "My baby sister? She's freezing." His voice cracked. I don't know what to do. I didn't think, I just moved, pulling off my coat before I even finished asking, "Where are your parents?" "My mom left us here," he said. And that was it. Whatever strength he had been holding on to just slipped. She said she'd be back, but that was before it got dark. I tried to keep Lily warm, but she kept crying, and now? He couldn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. I wrapped my coat around both of them, the cold hitting me instantly, but I barely noticed. "What's your name?" "Noah." "Okay, Noah. I'm Ethan. We need to get you and Lily somewhere warm right now. Will you come with me?" He hesitated. Just for a second, and I could see it. Everything he had ever been told about strangers, fighting with the reality in front of him. "I have a daughter," I said, softer. "If she was out here, I'd want someone to stop." That was enough. He nodded, and the tears came right after. I took Lily into my arms. She was colder than anything should be, not just cold from the air. Something deeper. Her body felt too still, too quiet, like she was slipping further away with every second. The hospital was 10 blocks away. My apartment was 6. I made the call without thinking. "My place is closer. We'll warm her up first, then I'll call a doctor. Okay?" "Yes, sir." We moved fast. I almost slipped once. Didn't care. The wind cut through my suit, my hands started going numb, but I kept her close. Noah walked right beside me, holding onto my sleeve like letting go wasn't an option. "How long were you out here?" I asked. "I don't know," he said. "A long time." Then, quietly, "Do you think my mom forgot about us?" I didn't answer right away, because there wasn't a good answer. "I don't know." And I meant it. I didn't know what kind of situation leads to that, what kind of fear, mistake, or desperation leaves 2 kids alone in the snow. But I knew one thing. Whatever happened before I got there, this boy had been holding on longer than he should have had to. We reached my building. James looked at me like something was wrong. "Call Dr. Hayes," I said immediately. "Tell him it's urgent, and call the police. I found 2 kids in the park." He didn't ask questions. He just moved. In the elevator, I looked down at Lily again. She wasn't crying anymore. And that silence, it felt worse. Because crying means there's still something left. Silence doesn't always mean that. For a second, I thought about Ava when she was a baby. The way I used to check her breathing when she got too quiet. I hadn't felt that kind of fear in years. And suddenly, it was back, sharp, real. My apartment was warm. I laid Lily down on the couch carefully, still wrapped in my coat. Noah stayed right next to me, watching everything. Like every second mattered. "Noah, I need your help," I said. He nodded immediately. "Go to my bedroom, grab every blanket you can find. We need to warm her slowly." He ran. I unwrapped Lily gently. Her lips, slightly blue, her breathing, shallow, uneven. And right there, something shifted inside me. For years I thought I understood what mattered. Business, money, control. But standing there, in that moment, none of it meant anything. All I could think about was whether this little girl was going to make it through the next few minutes. I didn't plan to say it, it just came out. What if I take them? The room went quiet. Everyone turned to look at me like I'd just crossed a line I wasn't supposed to cross. Detective Park narrowed her eyes slightly. "You? I'm not talking about anything permanent," I said quickly. Even though part of me already knew this wasn't going to be simple. Just until Child Services figures things out. They're already comfortable with me. I have the space, the resources, I can get them. Whatever they need. She didn't look convinced. "You're a single man, no recent experience raising kids, and these two just went through something serious." "I have a daughter," I said. "I raised her the first few years. I'm not completely lost." But even as I said that, I knew this wasn't the same. Not even close. I glanced over at Noah. He wasn't saying anything, just watching. Holding on to that last bit of hope, like if he let go, everything would fall apart again. "They've been through enough tonight," I added, quieter this time. "If they get separated now, or sent somewhere unfamiliar, that's just more damage." There was a pause. A long one. "I'll make the call," Detective Park said finally, "but I can't promise anything. This isn't standard." It took hours. Calls, approvals, questions I didn't even know how to answer. A late-night home check. Me calling in favors I hadn't touched in years. By the time it was done, it was almost 3 in the morning. And somehow, I was driving home with 2 sleeping children in the back of my car. Lily was in a hospital car seat, monitored, stable, but still fragile. Noah sat next to her, half asleep, his hand resting on the carrier like he needed to feel she was still there. I looked at them through the rearview mirror, and I had one thought. What did I just do? 24 hours ago, I was worried about a quarterly report. Now, I had 2 kids who had nowhere else to go. And I had just said yes. Back at the apartment, everything felt different, like the space finally had a purpose. I set up the guest room for Noah, turned my office into a makeshift nursery. Not perfect, but enough. I fed Lily slowly, careful, steady, watching every movement. Noah stood nearby the whole time, tense, waiting. Then she started drinking. Really drinking. And I saw his shoulders finally drop. "She's going to be okay," I told him. Again. "You helped her. You know that, right?" "I was scared," he said quietly. "I thought maybe you'd be bad. Mom said not to talk to strangers." But Lily was so cold. "You made the right call," I said. "Rules matter. But knowing when something matters more, that matters too." He nodded. That was the first moment I saw him start to relax, even just a little. By the time they were both asleep, it was almost 5 in the morning. I sat on the couch, staring at nothing. What had I just stepped into? I didn't know how to take care of a baby anymore. It had been years. I didn't know how to help a kid who had just been through that kind of night. I had a company, responsibilities, a life that didn't have space for this. But then I remembered the park. The way Noah looked at me, the way Lily felt in my arms, and just like that, the question disappeared. Because the truth was, there wasn't really a choice. My phone rang at 7. "Maria, Ethan, please tell me the news isn't real. Did you actually take in 2 abandoned kids last night? How is that already out?" I asked. "Someone at the hospital posted it. It's everywhere. People are calling you a hero. The PR team is losing their minds." I let out a breath. "Tell them no comment. This isn't a story." I just couldn't leave them. "I figured," she said. "I've cleared your entire week. Don't worry about work. I'll handle it." That meant more than I expected. The next few days hit fast. I hired Mrs. Lynn, a nanny who had raised 5 kids of her own, She walked in like she'd done this her whole life, calm, steady. I met with child specialists, trying to understand what Noah was carrying inside, not just what happened, but what stayed after. I learned how to make bottles again, change diapers, wake up in the middle of the night without thinking. And somewhere in all of that, my life didn't feel empty anymore. I didn't notice when it stopped feeling temporary. Somewhere between the late nights and the small routines, it just changed. I started learning things about Noah I didn't expect. The first few nights, he couldn't sleep without a light on. He'd wake up suddenly, like he was back in the cold again. And every time, I'd find myself walking to his door without thinking, just to make sure he was still there. I learned Lily had a strong voice when she was hungry, stronger than you'd expect from something that small. And somehow, hearing her cry like that felt like a good sign, like she was fighting to stay. Noah surprised me the most. He was sharp, way ahead for his age, reading things most kids wouldn't even look at yet, always asking questions about space, about how things worked, about everything, like his mind never really stopped. But more than anything, he watched over Lily. The first 3 days, he barely let her out of his sight. Like if he looked away, something bad would happen again. And even when things got calmer, I could tell he was still waiting. Waiting for his mom to come back. Or maybe, waiting for me to change my mind. One night, we were sitting on the living room floor, building a blanket fort, Lily asleep nearby. "I'm not going anywhere," I told him. He looked at me, not fully believing it. "Not yet. You and Lily are safe here. For as long as you need." He was quiet for a second, then asked the question he'd been holding. "What about our mom?" I had been getting updates. Diane was in custody, facing serious charges. She had admitted things had gotten out of control again, that she had made choices she couldn't take back. She had asked about the kids, cried when she found out they were safe. But the court had blocked any contact for now. "Your mom is sick," I said carefully, "not like a cold. It's something in her mind. It makes people do things they don't really want to do." He listened, really listened. "She's going to get help, but it's going to take time. So going back home, that's not something we can do right now." He didn't say anything, so I added something I needed him to hear. "None of this is your fault. Not what happened. Not your mom. None of it." I could see it hit him. "You're a kid, Noah. Your job is just to be a kid. The adults are supposed to take care of you. And when they don't, that's not on you." He stayed quiet for a long moment. Then he said something I'll probably remember for the rest of my life. "I'm glad you found us." A pause. "I'm glad you're not a bad stranger." 3 weeks later, I was sitting in family court, listening to a judge go through everything. Diane had been sent to a treatment program, at least a year, and after that she would have to prove she was stable before even seeing them again. In the meantime, the kids needed somewhere steady. "Mr. Cole," the judge said, looking at me over her glasses, "you've been caring for these children for 3 weeks, and by all reports, they're doing well. Lily is healthy, developing normally. Noah is in school, seeing a therapist, adjusting." I nodded. "Yes, Your Honor." She paused. "I'm prepared to grant you temporary foster custody, with regular reviews, home visits, oversight. This is not a typical situation." "I understand," I said. Then she asked the question everyone had been thinking. "Why are you doing this?" I didn't answer right away. I just turned slightly, looked at Noah, sitting there with Mrs. Lynn, closer to Lily than anything else in the room. And in that moment, the answer didn't feel complicated anymore. I didn't think I had anything special to say, but when the judge looked at me, I just told the truth. When I found them that night, they were cold, scared, and completely alone. I paused. At first, I helped because I think anyone should, or at least, I hoped they would. I glanced at Noah. He gave me a small smile. Still careful, but real. But somewhere along the way, it stopped feeling temporary. I continued. Noah reminded me how to be curious again, how to see things like they still matter, the way I used to, before life got complicated. And Lily. I exhaled softly. She reminded me how something so small can still change everything. I didn't try to make it perfect. The truth is, they didn't just need me. I needed them too. The room stayed quiet. We became a family, not in the usual way, but it's real. The judge nodded slightly. Temporary custody is granted. Good luck, Mr. Cole. And just like that, everything shifted again. 6 months later, Ava came to visit. I was nervous, but the moment she saw Noah and Lily, that was it. Dad, they're perfect, she said, already holding Lily. Noah stood next to her, talking about his science project, faster than I could keep up. Can they stay forever? I smiled. That's not entirely up to me. But life has a quiet way of answering questions. A year later, Diane made her decision. She had tried, she had changed, but she knew. She couldn't give them what they needed. In that room, she looked at me and said, "Please tell them I love them. Tell them I tried." I nodded. I will, and I'll make sure they know where they came from. The adoption was finalized on a December afternoon, almost 2 years later. Noah stood beside me, Lily laughing in his arms. And just like that, they were my children. That night, I sat in my living room. It wasn't quiet anymore. Toys everywhere, books on the floor, life everywhere. My phone kept buzzing, work, deals, everything I used to think mattered most. I looked at it for a moment, then turned it face down. Because for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was missing anything. I used to think I had to control everything. Be ready, have a plan. But the truth is, the things that matter most don't wait for you to be ready. And if I had walked away that night, I probably would have still had everything, just not the one thing that mattered. And if there's anything I keep for myself after all of this, it's just this. Sometimes, you don't need to be ready. You just need to not walk away. Because some moments, you only get one chance to stay. This story is inspired by real-life situations. Some details have been adapted for storytelling. If this story made you pause for a moment, then maybe it did what it was meant to do. You can stay and follow for more stories like this.